it doesn't matter what form of RMB it is. I mean, it's quite clear that the People's Bank of China, the central bank in China, still wants to control its monetary supply, right? And so therefore, you know, a digital form versus a traditional form, which is, by the way, electronic as well, is still heavily controlled by the central bank, right? So which means, you know, they have to consider a lot more than just the digitization part if they want to actually internationalize it, right? If you don't have open capital accounts, right, you don't have convertibility, i.e. to be able to exchange your digital RMB back to something else, then you can't really internationalize and become a global reserve currency or something like that, because nobody would use it, right? And that decision making is going to be a much harder decision, right, for the People's Bank of China, because there's all sorts of other economic considerations and concerns that they have. So opening up the capital account for RMB is going to be a slow process over years. So it's not like, okay, the digital RMB is going to come in and tomorrow it's going to take out the US dollar, right? But I think a pertinent thing to say is that, you know, again, fast forwarding 3 to 5 years, and now we got dozens of CBDCs, right? And they're from credible economies. And then you ask yourself the question, will these economies want to trade with each other outside of the SWIFT system, or outside of needing to use the U.S. you know, settlement networks and things like this, or even using the dollar as a reserve at all, right? And I think that has to be discussed. Meaning, you know, the U.S. System, right, that has existed for 75 years, you know, from World War II, Bretton Woods. You know, it's a 75-year system. I was actually at the 75th anniversary at Bretton Woods, and you know, that's a long time for technology or any type of system to exist, right? And so, and it's arguable that that system doesn't really have the dynamics that a lot of the world wants, right? And so I think if we're just being open about it, I think there has to be this catalyst system of change because of the technology, which has forced a lot of central banks who didn't want to think about it to now think about it and actually implement it, play catch up. And in that world, when they all issue, there has to be some different system that emerges than the one that exists now. Now, in that, I don't think this means like the hegemony of the dollar, the downfall of the US or anything like that. It just means that it's got to be more multipolar, right? And arguably speaking, that's not a bad thing, right? To have only one big lao da, right? One big guy who can dictate everything else. It isn't best for an international multipolar world that we find ourselves in. And so I think that new system has to account for the fact that there'll be new players, and it has to be somewhat representative, right, of the economic realities of that time, i.e., one way of thinking of it would be, depending on the size of the economies of these different countries, there should be some sort of weight to how it affects different things. People are now starting to talk about what we call supranational currencies, right? Currencies which are composite baskets of different currencies or different elements. I think it's a fascinating world, and it's a discussion that should be had. Meaning, I don't know what the solution is, right? I'm an American citizen. I would love to see the world kind of come together rather than fall apart. We are certainly challenged these days with the geopolitics and the way things are going. But I'm trying to figure out ways myself to get both sides to come together in a more harmonious way, right? Where we can